Carrie Negon, thanks for being with us. Carrie, let's start with you. How big of a concern do you feel safety in rural and northern First Nations Indigenous communities are?
I think it is a major concern. Even just recently, I think it was Peter Ballantyne band had a news conference talking about the rates of violence happening on their community and how they need help. It is a huge community. It's the largest in the province, and they need assistance. And it's not just policing. It's not just, giving them a place to stay. It's everything. It's a lack of housing, a lack of, services available to those living on reserve. And I think, a lot of the problems that we experience in urban settings are now happening within rural settings. And I think something needs to be done because there is no going home and going to be like, there's this idea that you're going to go home and it's going to be a safe place. If we don't keep that place safe, then where is home?
Yeah. Negon, we've seen First Nations, some, Yukon here as well, declare states of emergency when it comes to things like addictions and the fallout from that. Do you think a state of emergency is an effective way to address community safety?
It's often the last gasp effort to get attention on the issue. Put it this way, if you step on a nail in a city, you just simply drive down the street to your hospital, ER, even your general practitioner clinic, you'll be dealt with. There is dozens of services that are designed to be able to address what is a simple health issue. You do it on a First Nation, there's nothing. If the nursing station is open, you might access that. But the hours, 10, 20 hours that it takes for you to drive to a healthcare facility, never mind the 2 days that you need to wait in that facility to be able to be seen, you're taking a week out of your life that's away from your job, away from your kids, away from all the things that are going on within your community. And I'm just talking about stepping on a nail. I'm not talking about all the mental health services, crises that take years to escalate. I'm not talking about all the different things that involves, let's say, childbirth. So this is actually a taxpayer issue, because what it means is that taxpayers are having to service under-resourced communities. And so this should be something that every Canadian should care about. But what First Nations are forced to do is call a state of emergency. And sometimes so many states of emergency actually tunes out Canadians. But Canadians should be caring about all these First Nations continually calling states of emergency, and from everything from basic healthcare needs to mental health crises, suicide crises, to just basic things like should our nursing station be open once a week?
Right. Carrie, what do you think the root causes of all of this are?
A lack of resources, a lack of infrastructure. Negon mentioned taxes. We pay, like, the majority of Indigenous people, First Nations people, live off reserve. Our taxes go to the province. None of those tax dollars filter back into First Nations communities. All the resources come directly from the federal government. There is a lack of financial contributions coming from the province, despite the fact that we have very large communities, First Nations communities within the province, and we move back and forth, and we're going to have an impact on the rest of society. And I think it's really unfair that there is no sharing of even our taxation dollars. There's always this misconception that First Nations people don't pay tax dollars. They don't pay taxes. We get things for free. That's far from the truth. We pay a number of taxes, and I would like my tax dollars to go to help First Nations communities, whether it's in education, whether it's in health, anything that would benefit everybody. I think that's where our taxes should be divided, not cutting off these very large communities.
Negon, how can we turn the tide on what we're seeing here with addictions and violence?
I think taking First Nations seriously. I actually think also urban Métis communities, other Indigenous communities that are happening in rural areas. I mean, taking seriously when leadership points out that we have a problem here. We have chronic neglect here. We have a long system, decades upon decades of under-resourced communities. Here's the reality, is that those young people, as Carrie points out, will be entering into society. Do we want those young people to be entering into healthcare systems, justice systems, child welfare systems, or do we want them to enter universities, workplaces, into developing businesses that all people in cities can benefit from, like hotels, like pharmaceutical companies, construction companies? I think it's obviously the latter. And so I think this is an issue that every Canadian should be caring deeply about, to make sure that the situation on First Nations, even just having basic roads, roads that aren't potholes every spring, and that people cannot travel, so that when they do get that nail in a foot over an accident in a community, this isn't a life or death situation. This is something that every Canadian, whether you are a part of a First Nations, whether you are in a city, every single person in this country should have access to decent health care.
Carrie and Egon, we'll have to leave it there, but always appreciate your time.
Yeah, go ahead.